Hello, everyone. My name is Stacy Cornett, and I'm a therapist working at the Children's Home as a specialist working with children and adolescents, and especially children and adolescents that have experienced challenging circumstances in their past. We at the Children's Home want to extend a sincere thanks to you for everything that you're doing to support children and to help you during this very challenging time to function in the best way possible to support your children. So please remember that if you have been receiving services at the Children's Home, we are still available to you through a telehealth platform. And if you would like to get services because things are difficult and challenging, don't hesitate to contact us. We have therapists that are ready and willing to offer you help through a telehealth platform. So today we'd like to offer you some thoughts about how to manage the very difficult parenting task of supporting preteens and adolescents in doing just what they don't want to do, which is to stay at home, spend more time with us, more time with their siblings, and less time with their peers. We know how challenging this is, and we have heard this from so many parents. So today I'd like to give us a perspective on some things that we can do that can help in this difficult circumstance. The first thing that I'd like to point out is that it's always good before you have to set a limit with a child to get it straight in your mind why you're doing this, what your thoughts are about it, and ground yourself in your intention, which is to protect your child in this circumstance. And thinking about it from that perspective gives you the self-confidence to then discuss this with your child during a neutral time where you can explain, albeit briefly, why you're doing this and how you're going to handle this if the topic comes up. So I think that's an important concept of thinking about it first, delivering the message, and perhaps maybe you can re-deliver this message during a time when the child is not upset, you're not upset, and your teenager is best able to hear what you're saying. So I think that we, need to be thinking about where we're strong. Are we good at setting limits, or do we fail miserably at setting limits? Are we strong at connecting with our teenagers, or do we find that to be challenging? And give yourself a break during this difficult time. Don't beat yourself up or find ways to put your weakest areas out there as much as putting your strongest areas out there. If you have somebody in the home that you co-parent with, strategize with them on how we can team up and use our strengths in a synergistic way to help our children to stay connected, to stay in a protective stance with them, and to keep this time from being any more stressful than possible. So, when we think about conversations that we're having with teenagers, I think we often bring forward all of our strategies that we've used since, the beginning of our relationship with them in infancy and try to impose some of those same ways and characteristics of interacting and find ourselves frustrated. So, as much as we think it's important to give a rationale, I think in teenage years, the teens often don't think our rationales make sense. They simply just don't like what we're having to say. So I think to spend a little bit less time on trying to justify our concerns and spending more time allowing them to hear the message, always start off with some empathic statement like, I know this is frustrating, and try to mean it, because it really is important that they sense that you're trying to imagine how they're feeling, and acknowledge that that they're giving this their best effort, but that it's frustrating, and to try to stay out of lecture mode and getting into a lot of rationales, because they really simply don't need to hear it, and probably the conversation, the shorter the better, and giving them some time to accept and work through it themselves is going to be the most effective. So I think we as parents have helped our younger children to problem solve. And although it's hard to state and acknowledge, our adolescents don't always want our help with problem solving. They want us when they want us. They come to us on their terms, And even though it might feel difficult, now's the time to let that be the case. Because in a pandemic, in a stressful situation, we don't want to be trying new things, and we don't want to be trying to change, entrenched behaviors and patterns of interaction, because we're going to fail miserably. So allowing ourselves to shift to meet the adolescent where they're at is probably going to be the most successful. So even though we might have lots of ideas about how they can stay connected to their peers, they really don't want to hear it from us. Our kids are going through a fascinating time in brain development where their brain is heavily focused on identifying new and challenging ways of thinking. They're often much more emotional and excited about possibilities and new ideas. So their brain is looking for novelty and for creativity, and they're pushing away from us as the ones that are wanting and willing to give them these experiences. So frame in your mind that that's not rejection, that's their brain developing, that's their stage of development, and we're going to now try to focus on supporting them in a way that they're going to hear us and respond to us the best. So I would also suggest that we find a way to not have conversations with them when we're tired, we're overwhelmed, we're worried about finances, and when they're upset. Maybe they've had a contact with a girlfriend or a boyfriend that leaves them wondering what they're thinking, and they say, I have to talk to them now, I'm leaving the house. And we need to just find ways to keep ourselves calm, to reinforce what we've said before, and to try to not develop it into a time where we're going to argue and get heated. That's much easier said than done. So, we know that children are adolescents are doing their best in any given moment. And I think to have the mantra that we're going to stay away from anything other than, I know this is hard, I know you can figure it out, let's try to give ourselves some time away from each other. That's a hard thing to do, but that's a suggestion that I would make, and see if that's something that can at least keep things from getting more heated than they need to. So, one of the things that we also do with our teenagers often is we try to think of things that we think are important, not thinking necessarily from their perspective. So many parents have told me and some of our therapists that they're saying to their adolescents, this is a time for family time. This is a time for us to sit down and eat. We actually get to see each other now. And I think that recognizing that although we think that that's awesome, they might not think that's awesome. So allowing the child to adolescent to have some time away and to recognize that that's not necessarily a rejection of us, a rejection of siblings, but merely a stage of adolescent development that is normal and often productive in helping children to learn to be more independent and productive, is the way that we should think about that. So the mantra for today is trying to find ways to strategize to be at your best, to not have conversations when you're upset, to allow kids to come to you on their own terms, because the more we strengthen the foundation of our relationship, the better they're going to be able to set and accept our limits. So we at the Children's Home want to be here for you. We want to be offering you suggestions that are things that you want to hear about. So we'd like to suggest to you that if you have questions, concerns, topics that you want to hear about, please send them to the email that I'm about to give you. And in a couple of days, I'll be back on offering some responses to the questions that are important to you. So the email is PR, P as in Paul, R as in Robert, PR at tch.org. So please let us know what you're needing and wanting from us, and we're more than willing to cater some upcoming videos to address those topics and to answer your questions. So good luck, everyone, during this time, and know that we at the Children's Home are thinking about you and here for you when you need us. I look forward to talking to you again in a couple of days. Bye-bye, everyone.